Yesterday it was 95 degrees here, setting records here in the Rio Grande Valley, and today, wow, it's pretty nice, sunny, and mid-70s. It's kind of a nice day. You don't get too many days like this here. Still don't have any rain. It would be great if we get some rain down here. I've heard that from quite a few people today, but yeah, fantastic day. Hope you're having a good week. Looking forward to the weekend. We're going to be right here on Sunday at 10:30. I hope you can join us, be here at the Table Church. Jesus shows up. He promises to be here because his people have gathered around word and sacrament. And so Jesus will be here to meet us and to feed us and to tell us once again how much we are loved and forgiven. We are in the book of Job. We are making our way through the book of Job for our Lenten season, Faith Without Answers. And Sunday we were in Job chapter 14. And this coming Sunday, we're going to be Job 23. All of this stuff is really, really good. I encourage you, be reading the book of Job. 42 chapters, very easy to read. If you haven't started already, great. It's a great exercise for the season of Lent. And just 1 or 2 chapters a day, you'll have the whole book done by the time we get to the end of Lenten season. But Job is fantastic. What a book. It's considered a masterpiece. A literary masterpiece by many, including many scholars out there who aren't even necessarily Christian. I think it's a fantastic piece of literature. Job shows a lot of emotion. In Job 14, again, we kind of brought ourselves up to this point. Job has lost everything. We open the book of Job and we find that Job has everything. He's considered one of the greatest men to be living at the time. He's very, very rich. He's the billionaire of his day. He's got lots of cattle. He's got lots of possessions. He's got lots of land, lots of servants. So he's got his own company, and he's got lots of kids. He's got 10 kids, and these meals they're having all the time, just very luscious. I mean, the whole thing just screams, this is Job's Garden of Eden. And then overnight he loses it all. There's a conversation that goes on between God and Satan there in chapter 1 of Job, and again, it's all part of this. God kind of peels back the curtain. We get to see this conversation. Have you considered my guy Job? And Satan says, yeah, as a matter of fact, I have. The only reason he likes you is because he's got all this stuff. Take it away. And Satan's got a very materialistic view of life. It's a very materialistic temporal world view. But anyway, it all goes. Job has everything gone, taken away in an instant, including his health. His 3 friends show up. A 4th friend will show up a little later in the conversation, but he's got 3 friends. They're not of help. They're of no help. In fact, they make him feel worse. His wife really is no help either. That's Job chapter 2. He gets to Job 14. He thinks he's going to die. His health has deteriorated to the point where he just, Job 14:10, the next thing for me is to die. And so in all of this, there's this scene where Job apparently sees, I'm pretty sure he sees this. He says he sees a stump and it's got a sprout coming out of the stump. And of course he's saying, hey, there's more hope for that tree stump than there is for me. That's the contrast going on. But as we're looking at that stump, there's some fascinating things about that stump. First of all, you start to think, we've seen this before, or we see this somewhere else. It's probably a little more famous than Job chapter 14, verse 7. And that is Isaiah 11, chapter 11, verse 1. Isaiah 11:1 is the stump of Jesse, and there's a sprout that comes forth. Well, it's all part of the coming Messiah. It's all this language, Messiah language. So we know, again, this stump, this sprout is Jesus, and it's pointing to Jesus, all that. Job can't see that. Job, in fact, he looks at this. Is it possible for me to sprout again? But the rest of the conversation is, I just don't think I'm a goner. Even seeing the sprout there that could provide him hope, doesn't provide him a lot of hope. He doesn't seem to put a lot of stock in it. He's saying, am I going to sprout again? You think that will ever happen to me? And the rest of the conversation seems to indicate, yeah, I don't think that's going to happen to me. But you got this greenery stuff going on, and it makes you start to think, okay, you got this stump going on. Is that connected? And yeah, it is connected to all the other stuff going on with trees in the Bible. In fact, it was part of our conversation yesterday at Jesus and Tacos here at Blanquita's here in San Benito about all this, because the original trees in the garden and start this whole thing with trees in the Bible, and it works its way through obviously the tree in the middle of the story, the cross, and then ends with the tree of life in Revelation chapter 22. But it starts off Genesis chapter 2. There's these two trees in the original garden, the tree of life and the tree of knowledge of good and evil. God says, don't eat the one, you'll die. They did, by the way. Genesis 3. This tree of life thing. It's kind of fascinating how the theme just continues throughout the scriptures. In fact, it is so intricate to the story of the unfolding story of Revelation and redemption. The tree of life shows up in the tabernacle when it's built, and it's in the temple. That menorah, the original menorah, was shaped like a tree. It was supposed to look like a tree, and it's, again, tree of life. And so that when you get to Job and you see this stump, or you even get to Isaiah 11 and you see the stump, well, that's not the tree of life. That's not even a tree. It's a dead tree. How does that fit? Well, that's exactly the point. That's exactly the point. You see, the stump is uncreation. It's not creation. It's the reversal of creation. Creation is over. Creation has died. And Job feels like that. In fact, Job 3 is the unraveling of creation. You look at the language of Job 3, and Job is actually speaking, all the stuff we see in Genesis 1, all the great stuff about God creating the moon and the stars and, all the plants and the flowers and the animals and all the stuff going on in creation. It's all undone. That's how he feels. In fact, in his own life, that has happened. It's all been undone. Creation has reversed itself. All the garden language of Job chapter 1 is gone, and it's actually working in the inverse, like a black hole. Like creation has disappeared. That's the stump. So we're brought to the stump, and the stump is a heavy dose of reality, because Job sees himself as the stump, and really all of us are supposed to, which is kind of funny. In our day and age, nobody wants to talk about themselves as a stump at all. In fact, if you're rich enough, oh yeah, you're free to pursue all sorts of things to try and reverse death itself. Yeah, if you got the money, you got you can read story after story. I mean, just get on the internet and you can chase that rabbit hole about reverse aging or cryogenics or whatever. There's this chase for the fountain of youth, which, by the way, is closely tied to the tree of life, because the tree of life, again, offered eternality. So much so, again, we don't know all the stuff that was going on with that tree. I do think it was a literal tree. We don't know where it was, probably southern Iraq. Some people think it's at the bottom of the Persian Gulf now. We don't know what happened in the original garden, but all that to say is it's not, God doesn't want us to know where that is. But wherever it was, God said, after Adam and Eve had sinned, you know what? We don't want them eating the tree of life. They may live eternally in this sinful state. We don't want that. So he puts a cherub there with a flaming sword and says, yeah, you go back through there, you die. And so that hasn't kept people, though, from chasing this fountain of youth that offers all the same things. You got Ponce de Leon, in Florida. You've got Alexander the Great even talked about it. And the story of Gilgamesh is probably the most famous one. But you got all this stuff going on, and now you got people who are trying to buy their way or pay their way or invent their way into eternality. What's fascinating, though, is that God always said that's not going to turn out well. Not only did he put a cherubim in the garden to keep us from actually eating of it, but then when you get to the flood, he decides that he's going to limit how long humans can live. Because up to that point, humans, we're dying because of sin, but 700, 800, 900 years later, we're living that long. And for whatever reason, something about our anthropology, God says, you know what? Things are this evil. I'm wiping out the earth with a flood because people are living too long. So this whole idea about people living longer so that they can enjoy things, God says it's not going to turn out well. Even for Christians, I hear Christians all the time talk about, the progress of sanctification. And if we just live long enough, we'd be better and better and better and probably get to the point where we don't sin anymore. No. Genesis 6 says that'll never happen because our hearts are evil continually. And it's not just talking about unsaved people, which is the way I was taught that's scripture. It's talking about us. That's a universal, Christian, unchristian, whatever. Yeah, we're sinful creatures. We live long enough, we're not going to fix things. All that to say is we're supposed to see ourselves as that stump. The stump is where we're headed, all of us. And so Job's looking at that stump, and he's thinking, hey, there's a sprout coming out of that thing. There's more hope for that stump than for me. Now, he can't see it. Isaiah, though, does. Isaiah can't see clearly either, but he's got a little more information, and he's talking about this stump and this sprout as the coming Messiah. And what's fascinating about that is that the one who comes is both the stump and the sprout. He is cut down. What's fascinating about Jesus as the tree, he's the tree of life. The cross is both the tree of knowledge of good and evil and the tree of life. He becomes the tree of life for us. He talks about this in John 15. Now, he uses the word vine, but if you look at the vine's qualities, it's all the same stuff that's going on with the tree of life. So make no mistake, tree of life is Christ himself. And he was cut down. He became a stump for the rest of us stumps so that we could have life, so that we could sprout again. Jesus is the resurrection and the life. He's both the sprout and the stump for us, for you, for me. That's our hope. That is our hope. So no matter what's going on in your life today, no matter what's going on in my life today, just remember this, that Jesus came, he was cut down as a tree for you, on the tree. Curses everyone who hangs on a tree. Well, Jesus hung on a tree, and he did it for you, and he did it for me. And so whatever's going on in your life, there's hope. There's hope. You may be hanging on by a thin thread. Your faith may be shot. I feel that way sometimes. I do. Your faith may be shot. You may think, what use is this? This Christianity stuff. It's okay. And I've said it before. You've said it on the last conversation at the table. Doubt's okay. But that stump that Isaiah is talking about, that Job's seeing, is for you. The sprout is for you. It's for me. That's our hope. There's always life in Jesus. Jesus is always giving us his life. He gives us his life. I'm pointing to the sanctuary, by the way. He gives us his life every Sunday, in his word and in his sacrament when his people are gathered. So that's our conversation at the table. Jesus as our sprout, Jesus as our tree of life, Jesus as the stump who was cut down for us, all of us. You can rest in that. You can rest in that. That is your hope. Job couldn't see it, but we're given the benefit of knowing a lot of the rest of the story, enough of the rest of the story, to know that Jesus is what Job couldn't see. He's the stump. He's the sprout for you and for me, because he absolutely loves you. It's all about his grace. It's all about his forgiveness. It's all about the life that he gives us because he loves us. He absolutely loves us. And that is our conversation at the table today. Remember this. No matter what else is going on in your life, no matter what kind of hope you don't feel like you have, Jesus knows, Jesus cares, Jesus absolutely, unconditionally, and unstoppably loves you. He always, always has you. He's always holding you. Have a good Thursday.